Please, so we can get started for tonight's session. Thank you. Grab a drink, grab a nibble, get some pizza and a beer or something less strong, and we'll get started very soon. Thank you.
Air authority.
Oh, good, go for it. Well done.
Bad on toast.
Cozy. A little bit of housekeeping as well. There's a dog. We all love doggy. Her name is Indy. She belongs to Desi from Hatch Quarters over there. She's very friendly. And also the bathroom is indoors, but you will need a pass. Those with a pass, could we raise our hands? Me, Adrian with a camera, and then I believe our lovely staff outside. Walk up to me halfway through me hosting, grab the pass if you need to go to the bathroom. But yes, please find a seat. Try to secure the last few slices of pizza on the table. Nada's going at it. And top up your drink and we'll get started very soon. Oh, that's actually a great idea, Jakar. I'm gonna leave the pass on this chair over here. Oh, dog number 2. Yes. Eggy. Hi, Nikita.
Just remembered.
Oh, dogs making friends. Love. That's actually the first chapter of our program today. All right. Okay. I think we'll just get started. Speakers being Nikita and Lynn. Later on, your lovely faces will come up on the slides, and we'll have you come on top. But everyone, thank you so much for making it here for our cozy little welcome events on a Friday afternoon. Promise we'll let you guys go for your Friday dinners and big Friday weekend plans. But thanks for coming through here today. We've got with us the wonderful Komal from Tenacious Ventures and Dickie from Startup Victoria. You probably have seen him in the health tech pitch nights earlier this week and or any of the Victorian startup events. You will see him a lot if you're in startup space in Victoria. So yeah, I thought for those alumni who's actually been with us in VOCAG, you'll know this picture. I picked this because it's super cute, because this is us walking into a massive, I think probably Australia's #1 supplier of a small tom tomato that we've never heard of, because it's so new but so expensive. All the equipment they use were actually blueberry equipments, because that's where the technology still has a massive gap to delivering this. So that's all of us with our mouth open and Adrian snapping this picture in time. So I thought it's pretty cute. So a little bit about our speakers today. So Komal, principal of Tenacious Ventures. Tenacious Ventures is going to be a name that you're going to see a lot in the Agtech space, because they are ANZ's one and only, and the first, still one and only right now. Maybe not one and only. Who's your competitor?
Mandalay?
Mandalay is more impact, yes. But like I feel like.
Don't they have? I thought they have. Anyways, we started as the first and only Agtech VC firm. Yeah. We're not the only ag-focused fund out there, though.
Right, I see. Yeah. If you look at SproutX's website, coffee, we still have Australia's first, but there's what does first mean anyway? It's so fast in this space, but I think I definitely still want to give credit where credit is due. TV, correct me if branding is wrong if I call you guys TV, but Tenacious Ventures, call you whatever. Okay, Tenacious Ventures has definitely been in the forefront of the ag tech. I mean, definitely on the impact and climate side, as we all should in this day and age, but definitely setting a very clear narrative, which we will walk you through in some of the lay of the land in the Agtech space. But now over to Dickie, the head of partnerships at Startup Victoria. Do you want to talk a little bit about Startup Victoria? Sure. I'll let you do your own pitch.
Hello, nice to meet you all. Pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me, SproutX. Startup Victoria are Australia's largest independent startup ecosystem. So we're a founder community, agnostic of industry, so I'm going to represent the generalist approach, the non-ag person today, so go easy on me, please. And any stage we have in our portfolio. So ranging from startup enthusiasts who want to get involved in the ecosystem through to scale-ups like Culture Amp, Mr. Young, Who Gives a Crap, all part of our portfolio. So we provide resources, support community, mentoring programs. We connect to investors, to talent. We have big events. Basically, we're trying to be the glue of the ecosystem to help bring founders, investors, operators, government all closer, so we can elevate Victoria and Australia on the global scale.
I love it. They're also doing quite a lot of work in connecting regional Victoria to metro, and I think some exciting news in the later few weeks and months. So stay tuned with what Startup Victoria is up to. I thought I'd pass the microphone back to you, Kamal. Tell us a little bit about your professional career, intellectual curiosity background. Like, how did you get to where you are now? And tell us a little bit more about TV, more than how just described.
Sure, happy to. My background is actually in consulting. I think when I came out of uni, like most people who don't know what to do when they're leaving uni, you go into consulting. And I eventually moved into the international development sector. I moved to India, and that was the first time I got my introduction to the world of food and ag, almost embarrassingly, I would say, until I was there and did this project on smallholder livelihoods. I had never stopped to consider where my food was actually coming from. And yeah, I did this project, got to travel all around like really rural parts of India, see what was going on farms, but also the supply chain and how trade was being conducted. And that is when the food and ag bug bit me. I also, when I was working in international development, was doing work in health and nutrition and climate. And I saw this interesting nexus where really the food system sat at the heart of all of those things. And so decided that I wanted to pivot more kind of firmly into the world of food and ag. I went back, did my kind of business studies with a focus in sustainability, and then did a few kind of short-term gigs with startups here in Australia that were working in the food and ag space, and then met the team at Tenacious, and that was that. But in terms of what we do at Tenacious, we are an early stage investor focused on the food and ag system. So we are sector specific. We invest in early stage companies. Pre-seed, seed is our sweet spot. And as Maxie alluded to, our mandate is around climate impact for the global food and ag system.
Thanks for that, Kamal. Today, I actually brought Dickie here because I'm trying to convert him into the agri-food tech space, because he's like, you're so niche, Max. He's like, the pizza you eat, the beer you drink. So I thought it would be very cool and really fun as well to just get a little bit of an outside-in insight. That's also how I started SproutX as well. I saw a LinkedIn post. I was like, the team sounds really cool. Don't really matter if it's ag or food tech. Definitely a privilege to be in this space, but I've learned so much in the past 2 years. So, Dickie, you've talked a little bit about what Startup Victoria do. Be keen to know about how you get to where you are.
Yeah, so a bit of a checkered history. I'm obviously British, if you can't tell from my dulcet Yorkshire tones, but I actually started my career in the legal sphere, so I was don't hold that against me, please. I was a immigration and criminal defence lawyer in the UK and a captain in the British Army. And so completely different to what I do now. I moved to Australia, and this is relevant to tonight. Obviously, I came on a working holiday visa and had to do my farm work. So I had the introduction to ag in Australia, which was a very interesting experience. I picked raspberries in the Yarra Valley, milked cows in country Victoria, and then pruned kiwi fruit trees in Queensland, which I got loads of horror stories, but ultimately I survived and learned a little bit in the process about where my food comes from. And then sort of in the last 6-7 years I've worked in partnerships roles, mostly for scale-ups, in entertainment, edtech, and then kind of found myself in Startup Victoria, supporting us as we scale with these big exciting plans that Maxie's mentioned, and just love the startup space and the impact we can have socially, and love building community. So that's where I am now.
Quick, 3 words you can think of when we say Agtech as an outsider.
I was prepped for this, and I didn't want to be too for layperson and say things like farming and food. So cows, exactly. Yes, I'm going to go a little bit more kind of high level and say impact, sustainability, opportunity. It's an exciting time. There's so much happening at the moment in the space. And Maxi jokes about me saying it was niche, but the actual story is we were stood over here about 3 months ago, and a friend of ours said it was naming niche startup industries, and he said, you know, niche industries like death tech and sex tech and ag tech, and Maxi's face was horrified at the prospect. We're still friends. Horrified at the prospect that death tech and sex tech are the same level niche as ag tech. So I feel like I'm trying to really make sure that we see the opportunity that's in front of us.
We should probably get him as our next speaker as well. Put him in the hot seat.
I'll wait for a day where there's a death tech focus.
If you want to know more about death tech and sex tech, come talk to us. We do know.
That's my ambition in life.
That's your ambition.
On a death tech panel.
On the death tech, on the death tech panel, I love. Could probably have a merge between death tech and farm tech. There's a lot on the dark side of that as well, which is very necessary that we also air the room and talk about it. But would very much like to get going into a bit of a 101 lay of the land scene of Agtech. Love all your applications coming through, a lot of them coming through with a very specific focus on it. But I also love to show you about, like, you know, where you are situated compared to the rest of the other categories, which Como will definitely come out to reset the narrative a little bit, because how the current industry has structured everyone and labeled everyone doesn't adapt as fast as I think what a tech agnostic view of the space should look like. So we have prepared a little slide over here, probably is a little bit small fonted for you. Feel free to come to the front and have a look, but you can definitely download this on AgFunder. So, come on, I have a question for you. What agriculture subsectors, I guess, is Victoria known about, or the top few ones that stood out to you in terms of opportunities?
Well, I guess in terms of straight ag production, here in Victoria, we have lots of horticulture. Actually, fun fact, Victoria is Australia's largest exporter in the ag sector. So we do horticulture, there's a lot of dairy and livestock farming, and then cereal crops, so wheat, canola, and the like. I think those probably take out the top 3 spots. And compared to other parts of Australia, there are things that you won't find here. So cotton, for example, in terms of ag covers food and fiber, but the fiber part of production, at least in terms of cotton, is predominantly Queensland, and industry is actually expanding now to the Northern Territories as well. And so there are kind of differences around, and obviously Queensland also has a much more tropical climate than we do here. So in terms of fruit production and things like that, we have orchards and vineyards down here, but they have a lot more of the citrus and tropical fruit grown up there. But I think in terms of ag tech, that potential, I don't see it being as kind of geographic constraint, right? A lot of the solutions that are needed in ag are needed kind of across industry, and so no reason that Victoria can't be providing solutions.
That's definitely the answer. I'm sure the Victorian government will be happy to hear. But yeah, I mean, like when I first started, I was trying to really make sense, because it's just so complex. There's so many rabbit holes, and the only thing I know for this tropical immigrant is like Queensland with shrimp and then fancy mangoes. That's probably it. But the more we sort of like explore into this space, it's just sort of like as long as you can figure out, I guess, the supply chain, the value chain, how you get there. Tech definitely is a very agnostic thing. We take something from, I don't know, like spatial imagery, from space tech and mining tech, put that into ag tech. That makes sense to say, for example, spot for pest management as well. And that's something that, just because you're based here doesn't mean that you can go and export interstate and also internationally as well. So you'll probably see a few of your fellow cohort members who are definitely not with us here today, but they'll be dialed in virtually. These are all interstate peeps looking to come into the Victorian space precisely because of this export opportunity as well. And I know that we've popped this on, and the way that it's color coded is from upstream, midstream to downstream as well. In it, you'll probably see a few items that's probably not so big in Australia, because this is a report that's based off an APAC region. So things like e-grocery, things like home and cooking tech, and things that just feels like it's more of a high density population kind of tech emergence. So this is kind of like a great way to start. When I first started SproutX, this was really helpful for me to really understand the opportunities that I can take to really pivot and bridge into other spaces as well. But I know that I'm going to pop through to Como a very tricky question in the top 3 clusters that's really gaining momentum in the industry in terms of funding. If we have to pick favorite children, what would you go with first? Where's the money at?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question, because if you ask kind of where has the money gone and where broadly investors are putting money, I'm not sure I would agree with those categories as the ones that we find most interesting. So kind of categories that have attracted a lot of funding recently, the alt protein or innovative foods category, there's a lot in there. There's a lot the vertical farming type space has also attracted a lot of big investments, companies raising really big rounds. If you read headlines, I think even in Ag Funder's newsletter today, there's at least 3 articles there about how the vertical farming sector is imploding. And that's one of the tough realities of the startup and venture world, is that raising money isn't actually an indicator of success. It does not prove that you have a successful business model or that you have economics that work. And that is definitely what has happened, I think, in the vertical farming space. There was a lot of investor hype. Even at Evoke Ag a couple weeks ago, there were investors from around the world on stage talking about this phenomenon, which is, on the one hand, it's great to have more generalist funding coming into ag tech, because for too long it was only kind of sector specific people who were willing to put money in. But the other side of that coin is when what are sometimes called tourist investors come around and are making bets on what is kind of at the peak of a hype cycle and pushing up valuations without really understanding the underlying business and market. It can have pretty bad consequences, and I think that's what we're seeing playing out in the vertical farming space. The alt protein space is also seeing that to some extent. There were headlines around recently, is plant-based meat dead? What's happening with Impossible and others? And so I would say I don't know that I can say with conviction that the areas that are attracting the most funding are the most exciting or the best places to be operating.
I truly love that. We've got an alumni with us, 2019. His is probably the biggest inspo, I guess, for founders around. So he's gone through his first FFF round. So for those who are new to the fundraising journey, it means friends, families, and fools, the first page to invest in you. He did that, and then he kind of just went on to a very positive annual recurring revenue, and then he didn't need to raise anymore. So there's definitely this hype around, capital is a definition of your worth, of your value. And one thing that we really want to do through both of our programs is as many myths as we can debunk, as much shit as we can stir, to challenge you into finding your own quality information, to sort of figure out your space and know that there's not one set path that just because someone has done it and is successful means that where's Oatly right now, right? V2 Food has also imploded. And honestly, vertical farming system, we probably have to wait for the legalization of marijuana for that to really kick off for now, as we all know. But sometimes the market just isn't ready, or perhaps the capex is too crazy and too high for you to get onto it. So it's a bunch of really passionate people, and probably the same for a lot of the other tech, especially for the capex side of things. Like, we are in a space where we don't really follow the hardware is hard mentality, because let's be honest, SaaS wouldn't save the world. And a lot of the SaaS that works really well to a certain degree also combines themselves with hardware as well to really own that. So I thought it would probably also be great, Komal, if you could also talk a little bit about Tenacious Ventures' pathway as well, like the narrative that you're trying to redefine in this space.
Yeah, so we don't take a technology-specific view of where we invest. Our kind of framework is really about what are the pathways to create impact, specifically looking at climate impact in the food system. And so we think about it across kind of 6 key pathways, which are up here on the screen. I'm not sure if everyone can read them, so I will just very briefly read out the titles. But one is waste and resource recovery. One is enhanced natural capital. We have lower intensity production, sustainable protein, democratized infrastructure, and embedded risk and finance. And so we think about these as the kind of the systemic levers that we have to pull on to create the kind of impact we want to see. And often we find that startups and technologies and the businesses that they're developing sit at the intersection of a lot of these themes. And so we have found it that limiting and perhaps not the most helpful to think about opportunities as a specific technology or even a specific place in the value chain, because those lines are changing as we introduce innovation into the food system. And so just a quick example there, but when you divide things by value chain, for example, when you think about trading and finance, like, and where that happens on the supply chain, we think of it as kind of post-farm gate. But as we bring in more remote sensing, and actually you have yield estimates and quality estimates from the time that you put the crop in the ground, why wouldn't you be able to forward contract or provide financing on the basis of that information? You no longer have to wait till the crop is fully grown and someone has it in hand to assess it and assign value to that. And so that kind of opens up a lot of scope for what the supply chain could look like in the future, and involves various types of technologies coming together. And so, yeah, we have taken a more kind of systemic opportunities for change lens in how we think about opportunities.
And a really good tip, I think, that I would share, even just by, I guess, doing SproutX's own business model Canva, because we too are a business social enterprise just like you guys, but it's also very helpful to go and research, say, the venture funds, the industry bodies, the sort of themes or topics that is set out that they're going to address within the next couple of years. So that's going to set a very clear scene of this is where the industry is viewing, or for VC or family offices, this is where the opportunities will be going. So these are also things that we will be sharing throughout the program as well. How are we going, Dickie? How's the info download at the moment?
I'm learning a lot. Yeah.
How are you doing coming from an impact space versus, I guess, everyone, like in the non-ag food circular? I haven't prepared him for this question.
Can you tell the horror in my eyes on that?
Yeah, which out of all of this, as an outside in terms of, I guess you will be chatting to a lot of the VCs, especially in an era where the capital flow is a little bit tight. I feel like everyone's trying to bait to say, like, there's still dry powder. If I hear another dry powder in an event, I was just like, tell me, please. Really, like, when you say this, like, what does it mean? So in terms of impact, do you know, like, what are all of these funding opportunities are looking at? Because it can seem a little bit broad sometimes.
Yeah, look, it really is. My probably closest experience to this is working with Giant Leap. the impact fund, and so I'm mentoring a couple of founders now who are going through funding or trying to get fundraising from them. So their impact fund closely aligned to Startup Victoria. Our previous chair of our board is one of the partners there. Helping to mentor these founders at the moment, and it's really hard to define that impact piece, and that's probably their biggest part of their mandate is how do you actually define what your impact is in terms of that impact calculator. It's a very hard thing to actually do as an organization. And like you say, there's funding there to be deployed, but the conversations with VCs I'm having now, it's very smoke and daggers in terms of, they want to be showing that they're still relevant because they're sitting on cash, and you've probably got an opinion about this, I'm sure. And we haven't spoken before, so I'm not referencing you here at all. But I feel like the rhetoric is there's cash out there, and because that's what they do. Ultimately, if they didn't deploy their cash, they wouldn't exist. But I know from private conversations there is a reluctance to invest in the next few months, and that's going to have a huge flow on a lot of impact businesses and just startups in general. It's a tough time to capital raise.
Thanks for that, Dickie. And yeah, there's a lot, and there's soon to see there. I think there's going to be a bloom in the angel syndicate space. We've just launched ours in Evoke Ag last week, and I know the Victorian government is going to support a lot. So there's definitely the awareness on how to bridge founders from starting from where they are and all the way to try to speak to investors to say, hey, we've got a few people who are keen as well. So if you put in this much and I can rally up this much, this is all of the journey that you will be embarking on in the next couple of weeks to a couple of years as well, if you're not distraught yet or disheartened by this space. But I feel like the people who do stay really is absolutely still here in the long run as well. So I feel like since we're talking about capital, it'll be very, there's a slide in Evoke Ag that I definitely want to draw out that I feel is really interesting. So this is where they said the categories of Agtech and also the amount of money, sorry again for the very small fonts, amount of money going from innovative food, 98.2 mil, all the way to the bottom in-store retail to 130K. I'm sure you've got some feedback on this, Como. I remember looking at this slide, and they've also broke it down to a few of the startups that's on the really top. Milk Run was there, but when the event happened, they already died, as we all know. So, I mean, the original question was going to ask, what are your thoughts about the top 3 and then the bottom 2? But very curious to see your views, because we've got a few robotics peeps here, and it's kind of really disheartening to see that that's at the very bottom of this list as well. Any thoughts on this slide?
I think some of my thoughts from previously hold, but I also think the thing that this probably doesn't bring out is the outliers or what's skewing the data, right? Val's Series A is driving that top line innovative food line. If you took Val out, I think, I don't know how much is left. Their Series A, no, I thought it may have been 70, what was it? 70, 80 something. It was the largest Series A for a cellular ag company. So it was big. But in terms of the ranking of these, I will say that from our perspective, and I think you alluded to this previously, Maxi, when you said, right, software is not gonna save us, and software is also not gonna feed us, right? As a complete solution, we need hardware and we need deep tech, especially in the ag space. And in terms of how we think about investing in this space, we do a lot of hardware and a lot of deep tech. We also have some pure SaaS and software in our portfolio. But the way that we think about the world is, in this sector, there are opportunities where, yes, there's really high technical risk, but the potential to serve really well-established markets that are massive, that have like known customer bases, and you can find opportunities where once you prove out that technical risk, you kind of have that launch pad into a big, massive market. And so relatively low market risk. Whereas a lot of software has much lower technical risk, but much bigger market risk, right? They're building something, and then the question that they have to go find out is, do people want to buy this? Whereas a lot of the solutions that we're looking at are like, we know people would pay for this if it was possible, right? And so an example there is Jupiter Ionics, which we're an investor in, and they're working on technology to take water, air, and sunlight and turn it into fertilizer on farm. People will pay for that.
Yeah.
It is very high technical risk, right? They're still in the lab, and who knows if it'll be successful, right? We think they have a great technical team behind it and that there's a good chance, but under no illusions that like, it may not just work, right? And we don't know that. But if they can crack it, no doubts that there's a massive market there. And so those opportunities, I think, are unique because ag is very industrial, and those markets exist. Those markets are also coming under disruption from climate pressures and regulations. And so kind of in the fertilizer world, right, ammonia production currently is really emissions intensive. And so the push to clean up scope 3 emissions and things like that, there are so many tailwinds. And those are the types of opportunities that we get really excited about, and probably are a lot of the ones that are in the middle to bottom of this list.
You've got product market fit ultimately already. It's about delivery. Is it actually possible to deliver the solution? It's completely reverse to a software business model, right? Super interesting.
Do you have carbon on your portfolio? Like, I guess carbon tech, soil tech, people addressing, it's a hype space, yes?
Yes, we do. We have Regrow, who started here in Australia as Fluorosat and have flipped up to be in the US, and they're in the MRV space, so doing monitoring, reporting, verification of outcomes. We have Cecil, which is a software company, so they're pure software, but they're in the natural capital space, looking at data management and workflow management for natural capital projects. We have Nori, which is a voluntary carbon markets scheme, and they also have tokens. Those are probably the three that are most squarely in the carbon and ecosystem services marketplaces.
Later on, I guess, if you wanted to know more about your space and get Komal's perspective and view from it, definitely grab her. Definitely asking for the carbon peeps in this space. We do see a lot of like emissions, climate, carbon, people who want to come in and tackle this challenge in our applications as well. So I guess after all of that and a little bit of a lay of the land, okay, want to get your views on early stage founders or even future founders, people who haven't really regroed their business yet. Like, tell us a little bit about, maybe let's start with red flags first. How about that? Like founder traits, because Startup Victoria would have gone through hundreds, thousands of peeps. Like, here's my solution. You like? And like, so what's a good indicator, or rather, what's a red flag that'll make you, in an engagement with them in a networking space or looking in their pitch deck, and you're just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I probably see about 30 pitch decks a week in my LinkedIn inbox. And then obviously pitch nights. We host a monthly pitch night. We can get up to 150 applicants for a pitch night. That's a long evening going through, making sure that everyone gets the same, a chance of starring on the show. So I do see a lot of solutions and started to kind of build that muscle, I suppose, in terms of what I like and what I'm looking for. Also, full disclosure, I've started in the Airtree Angel Investing Program, which Max is also an alumni of. So, and that's really about training you to be an angel investor with a VC lens. So again, that's really good in terms of nailing what's good and what's bad or trying to at least. I think the caveat first to say, before I say this, is that you're never going to know. Look at Canva. They got knocked back 100 times, more than 100 times. And look at them now, unicorn status, Melanie's amazing. So I feel like you can never actually really be precise in terms of what is good and what's bad. In terms of red flags, I think we were talking earlier about this. I'm finding more and more now people can't seem to really laser focus on what the addressable market for their product is. The amount of times I see people with pitch decks that I work in, my product's an entertainment solution and the market's worth $50 billion, and that's where it stops. And I'm like, there's a big jump between this brand new startup you've got and a $50 billion market, which is so broad, which covers TV, media, film, I think games consoles. It's like your product doesn't do any of those things. So how have you actually, laser focused that down and really addressed who is actually your market you're going to address? That's a big one for me. Big one is probably commercials. So many amazing founders that have the vision, the technical skills, got the team in place, but the commercial model's just not there. I think that might be something you got away with probably 2 or 3 years ago. Even 6 months ago, I saw a startup get $500,000, and I remember having breakfast with them the morning it got announced, and they didn't have a monetization strategy yet. And I remember asking them, and I was blown away when I saw the announcement they'd made $500,000. They raised $500,000, and I was like, you haven't even thought about how you're going to make money as a business. Nowadays, you'd never get away with that in this current funding climate. So that's probably a really big one for me. And then as a generalist who sees a lot of pitch decks, I want a slide there telling me what the product does and how it does it. The amount of times you literally get this whole pack and it's literally like, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to change the world, here's the problem, here's the solution. I'm like, how do you get from there to there? It's a common trait to just miss that step and explain that. If it's done well, it's amazing. So they're the big red flags for me. I'm sure you've got plenty as well, come on.
Oh, you're like, give me the microphone. No, I'm sitting here plus oneing everything you're saying. I definitely on the business model side of things, like, please articulate how you will earn revenue. And I think an added lens to this, often in ag supply chains, there's also a difference between who's the user of your solution and who benefits from the solution, and therefore how your business model accounts for that and enables you to capture value that you are enabling. Because it's not always a one-to-one of sell the product to the person who uses it, because that may not maximize your value capture proposition. So definite big +1 on business model. The second I was going to say was how does this actually work? A lot of times it feels very hand-wavy, right? It's like this big massive problem and it's such a deep pain point and we're gonna solve it, we have technology. It's like, great, like what is in the black box? And I'm not asking you to divulge your like deepest secrets and your IP, but I need you to explain to me how this is possible, so that we can form an assessment on whether we think that's interesting and what the potential there is. Because otherwise it feels like you're bullshitting us. And so it's not a great place to start. And I would say this, not that it comes across in a pitch deck, but a positive trait that we look for, and maybe I'm cheating here because I'm going to do the converse of that, but we talk about holding strong convictions weakly held. So we want to know that you have conviction in something, that you've learned about something, you've developed a hypothesis, and you have conviction in that, but that you are willing to learn and have those assumptions challenged, and then being willing to take on that feedback and changing your stance, changing your viewpoint. And so when we don't see that, that's a huge red flag.
Give me the microphone, girl. That is one thing that I definitely, as a program, as someone who runs program, definitely wants to say, like, you all made it into the pre-accelerator program. There are a few candidates that will come through, and it's just, I don't know how, so like, I think what we're trying to drill down to here is, their founder personality, their characteristics, their traits, because ideas change, ideas pivot. We've got an alumni who probably through our 6-month accelerator program pivoted 6 times. That's once a month, and that's fine because you're meant to fail fast. You're meant to shed whatever is not necessary for you and it's efficient, just so you can go a lot faster. But then we've also come, like, we'll have a few founders that's come through in our chats that said, you know, what we're doing versus what, I'm going to throw some startup names that you probably wouldn't know, but we've got technology that's very similar to like mobile or AgriWeb, and then they don't know their customers. They're just like, AgriWeb raised $9 million, what are you doing? So it's sort of like, you go out with it. It makes me feel like it's really hard to communicate with this particular individual to say, hey, what if I'm about to bring through some very honest and necessary opinions to you about your pitch deck? I really don't, it's my job, but also at the same time, there's so many hungry founders that really wants to, you know, get across and SproutX's, can you have a look at my pitch deck? Is there any events that I could go to? And one of the best, I'm just jumping between red and green flags right now. I'm really enjoying this combo. But we brought an amazing alum, Alex, you would know, Andrew from Slices. So he does extension of food shelf life. He's 64-year-old. He, on our first phone call, he's like, Maxi, I may get hit by a bus tomorrow. I really want to download all of the ideas in my head, find a co-founder. I want to get to this point at this time, and this is what I want to raise. And my brother-in-law gave me $250K, and he only got 3 years to live, and I want him to see something. And I'm like, oh, haha. But that's like the hunger that really gets us going. Like, it's sort of like, oh my gosh, let me bring you to Evoke Ag. And when we did, and Adrian would know this, like every single time we saw him in a room, he's chatting to someone, he's talking to someone, he would be like, Costa is over here, the avocado growers is over there, and he was just like, phew, gone. And then to have that conversation, and it just feels like, cool, I want to invest in you. If I have a lot of money and I am an angel investor, post the whole like Airtrix Grow programs, and I want to put in like 1 to 5K in it, I know you will take this somewhere. So that's just like the sort of, you know, like, focus on your own path. There's probably a lot of people doing what you're doing, sure, but do they have the same conviction as you do? And if you're unsure, maybe this will be a great, honest, self-guided questions for yourself to say, is this really it for me? And that's what we're here for. If you, after the program, decided Agtech is not cut out for me, you leave with something and a better knowledge of this space too. And perhaps in the other industries that you get into would also benefit one way or another. So this is kind of like a massive push into this space. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anyways, are we on red or green right now for you? We're in green. All right, green flags, Dickie.
Wow, yeah, after all that, I mean, yeah, I agree with everything you just said. The vulnerability, ability to take on feedback, belief in the founder. I always ask myself, ask them, prove to me why you're the person to solve the problem you've identified. Industry knowledge or knowledge of competitors, or you know what you've done before, what the team looks like, all those things. I love your phrase. I'm going to definitely steal that. I apologize. To add something new, for me it's that sweet spot between ambition and reality. So I think like you have to be, I want to see ambition, and to invest, you know, you have to believe in where it's going to go, and you're going to see a good exit as a VC if you're fundraising. But then there's that opposite side, which is that just wild ambition, which I probably talked about earlier, that I'm going to take on this $50 billion market. It's like you want to make sure that your solution is niche enough and you're focusing on one thing and doing it really well. And the other thing I always say is, you know, I like to see someone who's thought of the exit. Where does it end? Because it's very, it's kind of macabre, going back to death tech again, but it's like if you lived your life knowing you were going to die, you'd make certain choices. I like to think that someone looks at their business and thinks, I'm going to do this and my potential exit is going to be this, and that's where it's going to take me. Well, that's the end goal, and then you can work backwards from that. So if someone's got that kind of in mind from an early stage, I feel a lot more confident in knowing what they're doing and where they're going.
Can we call that as like awareness of like the trajectory of your business?
Yeah, sure. You can call it what you want, but yeah, I like that. Again, I think it's looking from the fundraising lens, right? It's like you want to, as that's what you're doing, right? You're going, where am I going to get? You know, I just want to sit in this portfolio and it churns around and then eventually it drops off. You want to see where the exit's going to be long term. And I think I would as a founder as well. So that's what I look for. They're my green flags.
I think that last point is especially salient in the world of food and ag, because the reality is we're not going to see tons and tons of unicorn IPOs out of the food and ag sector. That's just the reality, right? It's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean that there's not good potential for returns in food and ag. If we believed that, then we wouldn't exist, but we're here. And that's because we believe that there are other pathways, and a lot of it in food and ag will come down to M&A. And so knowing, again, it kind of goes to that, what value are you creating and how is it being captured? Like, you're creating value somewhere along the supply chain. How, like, think about that. And like, what does that mean for your exit pathway? And how are you proving that out? Or what's your plan to start those conversations when the time is right? So another +1 on that. On other traits, I would say being hypothesis driven, right? We really like to see that. Like, what have you gone out and collected in terms of data? How have you tried to test your hypotheses? What has that taught you? How have you pivoted on the basis of that? My other +1 was on, we often talk about it as a concept of founder market fit, which you alluded to in terms of kind of, you are just so passionate about this space, and if someone's gonna win, it's gonna be you, because you are just, that's what gets you out of bed every morning. And so it is a very intangible thing, but one that we think is legit.
Some great phrases to steal here.
I know. SproutX, TM, all mine. I just feel like I've opened up so many new tabs in my brain as the both of you has spoke. But I definitely do want to touch on one of the, I think all three of us has mentioned, like, really like know your niche and laser focus. So I'm gonna talk about a feedback that our sponsor, but also really great personal friends from Bayer Crop Science has mentioned in our last Farm Fumbles follow-up with some chicken soup content. But one thing that Chris Staff, head of digital farming in Bayer Crop Science Australia, has said, that you see so many people try to do, oh, I want to do this. Oh wait, someone else is doing that. I'll do this and that, and then end that. And I wanted to try to do the entire value chain. But he's like, what we really want to see is someone who is working on a niche on this value chain, partnering or integrating up with someone else who's doing this, and everyone's providing a bit of their niche, and then together that forms an end-to-end value chain. So not to chase the whole like FOMO of, oh, I haven't done this yet. I too want to integrate onto, I don't know, an Apple phone, or I want to be able to export into a pretty, I don't know. But, you know, don't get distracted by shiny new things. And part of what the program would be having is a rabbit hole series. Last session, we actually got, it was funny. So we got the chair of Dairy Australia, but he's also someone who has created the vaccine for livestock TB, and he's done so much like LinkedIn keyboard, this is Paul Wood, keyboard argument. So we were just like, Paul Wood, let's get you, and let's get something from CellAg, and then fight it out in one of our webinar session. And it's amazing how beyond that, we know that we're all heading towards the same spot, but we're very good at this particular niche, and we'll just focus on what we're doing. So that's kind of like an advice that I think if I were to give to future founders, is to just focus on that space. And I think we do live in an era where a lot of our accomplishments or achievements, and we're so focused on the arriving that we forget to focus on just letting your intellectual curiosity lead you deeper and deeper into this. And this is definitely a founder market trait, love stealing, it definitely does bring through. So when you chat to investors, they will come back again, and we've got alumni who we knew that Blackbird is probably not interested in what they're offering, but they're willing to have convos again and again because they want to be part of that journey. And the Cheryl Mack, who's an amazing kind of like one of the figureheads in angel investments in Australia. What was my point? I had a brain fart. Right, she was saying how she wanted to invest in Harvest Bee, and Harvest Bee, again, another ingredients or space. Part of Woolly's W23's portfolio, I think. When we caught up in around Evoca, she's like, Maxi, I don't know what they're doing. I really love them though. Take my money. And I was just like, wow. One, I wish I am as rich as you. Two, but it really just does show on how it's so contagious, and I'm sure it's the same for you both as well. Like that's what gets us going every day, waking up in the morning. I don't know about you two, but I'm scared shitless. I don't want to be a founder because that's really a tough job, but we also do have the network and the resources. We just want you to arrive and want you to win. So helping you focus on what the necessary, I guess the truths are, focusing on your path. And I'm very confident that you will get to where you want to be, if not definitely learn more about this space or find other cool peeps along to journey along with you. That's my chicken soup. So I think I'm going to throw in probably if there's any questions from the crowds that anyone wanted to raise at this point. If not, definitely find Komal and Dicky on LinkedIn, fight through all the pitch decks to try to rise above the noise there. But yeah, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you for sharing your insights with us today. For sure. And then I am going to slowly usher some really cool peeps that's going to help our founders in their journey throughout the program. So thank you very much again. All right, coming this way. And if we can have Standard Ledger and Luna come on just to talk a little bit about how you support our future founders, because don't wait until the program starts. I'm sure some of you already have some questions. So, thank you all. Yeah, you're done. Thank you. All right. So these are also faces and logos and brands that you'll probably see quite a bit throughout your journey, and we've decided to get both Nikita and Lynn to come here today because we've got a few founders throughout their journey. Before we even started, they're like, Maxi, I'm working for this massive company. Can I even start on my journey without them stealing all my IP? Or Maxi, I really I'm thinking of, I need to raise this much in order to get there. I need to get my finances and modeling sorted. So let's hear it from Nikita. Tell us a little bit about Luna.
Thanks, Maxi. Is this mic distance correct? More? This one? Okay, cool. Few points. One, thanks for getting my best photo up there. Two, you guys are such good listeners. And I'm not getting really Friday vibes from anyone, so I don't know if it's just lack of beers or what. And three, I'm very happy to be here. If everyone's wondering, my dog, Eggy, you can meet him, very friendly. I think getting into a bit of a panic attack that I'm not next to him. But hi, let's get the energy a bit up. I'm Nikita, I'm from Luna Startup Studio. We are, Luna. Luna started almost sort of 8 years ago. And it started because the founders realized that legal and accounting for startups sucks, okay? The way that it's done sucks. And founders don't need to be going to people in suits that talk in ways that they don't understand and costing money that they don't have. And hence Luna was sort of started. So we do legal and accounting and education services for startups, scale-ups, and corporates. So legal, when you're thinking of legal, it's everything from sort of your, setting up a company to securing IP to, exits, all sort of the support work that comes with investment, all of that. And with accounting, again, end-to-end services, so think like bookkeeping, payroll, tax, financial modeling, all the way through to sort of virtual CFO services. And we've got the labs arm, which is sort of the education that we do for schools, universities like Monash, and corporates, as well as, of course, founders. So yeah, that's sort of the offering. And over the last sort of 1 year, we realized that our services have been operating in a bit of silos. The legal lawyers don't know what's going on with accounting, and we just wanted to be quite more founder focused. So we've rejigged our systems a bit, and we now have three teams called Launch, Amplify, and LunaX. And our launch team consists of lawyers and accountants and what we call Labradors, because we don't know what to call people from labs. So we cater to early stage clients. So think, from idea sort of through to the seed Series A round. And then post that, your high growth companies, your sort of more scaling rapidly, they are looked after by our Amplify team. And then LunaX team looks after corporates and universities. So, we've just helped ANZ with their sort of innovation spin-off arm called 1835i. We work with 1835i. Monash University, we've designed and delivered undergrad and postgrad courses on law for entrepreneurs and VC. So yeah, a lot of really cool stuff going on. Obviously, you've noticed I don't do legal or accounting because that's boring. But I do the marketing and community at Luna. And yeah, I've been there for just 2 years. But yeah, gonna stick on.
So I know we have a few alumni with Luna. For early stage founders, or say like the future founders, what are some, give me one or two of the most common questions or pain points they come to Luna for?
One is, do I even have any of my legal documents, right? Can I please secure my IP? What does that mean? What does that involve? Obviously, all some of the boring stuff like GST and all that kind of stuff. And then we've seen them really grow. I mean, not early stage yet particularly, but we've seen them from, we've been with SproutX since your inception, and we've had people from SproutX alumni from the very first cohort that have stuck with us till today. So, tie-up farming, actuary, mobile. They're all founders that are still with us today. In fact, tie-up farming, Roy works out of our Byron studio. So yeah, it's almost been married to those people for very long. So I'm hoping that's because it's a testament to good work that we do, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Nikita. And throughout the SproutX program, there'll be office hours with the Luna crew, and in the future, for all the Victorian startup scene events, you'll definitely see Dickie and Nikita, all of these community managers that you see that you can latch on for support. But definitely want to thank you so much, Nikita, for sharing through. Want to also chat a little bit about Standard Ledger. So we've got Lynn with us today. You probably would see Remco around the Standard Ledger space for some of the startups in this space. But Lynn, let us know what's Standard Ledger all about and what do you guys do?
Hi everyone. So I'm the boring accountant. So I actually the first finance person that Remco hired. Standard Ledger is also a startup by itself. So it's founded to help founders with all things related to finance. That's the vision. So now we have offered different service like bookkeeping, accounting, financial modeling, virtual CFO, valuations, R&D, tax grant, and anything that you can just want help in finance, you can just contact us and we can try to help you. So that's what startup is about. We're just being agile and flexible. So if there's anything related to finance that you can't find on our website, just reach out and we can just help. And so I'm the finance manager. I help the virtual CFO, so I work on different clients. And the recent one I'm proud of is I just helped finish a M&A deal. PowerPower is recently being acquired by Amber Electric. So PowerPower is an app that helps you to manage your energy in your house to kind of make sure that you keep track of your energy consumptions. And so the founder of PowerPower now become a millionaire, and he really appreciate that, and he's invited me over to Sydney for dinner. So I just came back from Sydney. So I'm really happy that I'd be able to help founders and see all the up and downs when I work with them, when they're really stressed and they're like running out of money, or when they have money. So yeah, so that's what Standard Ledger is about.
What would be a common pain point that an early stage founder, like we all know and love Amber Electric for those who are sort of in the sustainability and then the energy space, but in terms of like early stage founders, like the first question after they've met you at a networking event, they're like, oh, Lynn, this is something that we are, like the challenge that we're facing, please do help. Like what's a common one that comes out to you on top of your head?
The most common questions that I have would be, what is the valuation of our company? So when they're trying to raise money, they need to get a realistic valuations, which is really important because some founders, they have they're an expert in their field, but they know nothing about finance. So, so it's our jobs to quantify their assumptions to make sure that it's realistic. And we love, like I met founders who are really passionate about their ideas and passionate about their companies, but because they don't have like financial knowledge, so we need to kind of be realistic and like, this is the numbers, please look at the numbers and look at the data. And so yeah, so that's the common question that I got.
Love that. That's also something that I semi-struggle with as well, because they'll just come through as like, my startup is $10 million. Like you haven't, yeah, how, what, where, why? But yeah, thank you so much to both Lynn and Nikita for joining us today. I thought that I should also give an honorary shout out to Nada over there. If you can give us a wave. Nada's from Findex, our parent company, but she is in the R&D and tech, if I'm correct, and grants. Yes, go cash. Hashtag cash, yes. So there's and I'm just going to address the elephant in the room as well. There's a lot of people in this space, a lot of people doing kind of like different, similar services with a different flair. And it really just, it's all based down to founders as well. And also a reason why that community managers are also very important in this space, because you know, sometimes they probably wouldn't know exactly how to pinpoint either their issue, or there's so much noise in the market, I don't even know where to start. So don't worry, there's going to be a lot of people that's probably, you know, consultant versus ecosystem builder, but just go with your guts and have as many conversations as you can with people out there looking to support. And hoping that this has been a fun/informative, but also a very good opportunity to meet you guys until perhaps our upcoming producer tour, dates TBC. But thank you again to all of our speakers today, and thanks for joining us for a little bit of a cheeky Friday din-din before your actually dinner. Thank you all. Turn on those.